Hello and welcome to OT, the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, Tom Cruise, and how to spend it. I'm Andy Green.
Whoa. I'm Felix Schultz, and we're not talking about Tom Cruise at all.
Sorry.
It's not Tom.
A little bit we are.
Yeah, well, we are, but it's not legally. Legally, we cannot
Legally,
say
we
it.
do not discuss Tom Cruise. It's a different...
The
different
famously chill and relaxed Mr. Cruise. No, we are talking to someone who is actually chill and relaxed.
Yes.
Miles Fisher.
But what a guy. About 12 months ago, I spoke to him. You had a migraine that morning.
Yeah.
I remember it very clearly. You were devastated.
I bailed on you like minutes beforehand, too.
6 minutes before, you were devastated.
Yeah.
Me and Miles just hung out, had a great time. Probably one of our best ever episodes. But he was sad he didn't get to chat to you because he's a big fan.
His sadness has been cured now because we well and truly chatted.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we talked about lots of. Obviously, you were there. We talked about AP. We talked about Dubai. We talked about deepfakes, and got a bit real around that sort of stuff, which is cool. But hey, so Andy, it's the end of the year.
It is.
And I think Miles is a good way to go out on just quietly.
Couldn't think of a higher note to finish 2021 on.
Yeah, but I also thought we should probably have a little bit of a break. So I think if anyone's listening to this as it goes live, the next couple of episodes, they might be a little less on the original content and more on some of our greatest ever interviews, getting a little bit of a fresh airing off. So you can look forward to that, dip into the archive, so to speak, and we can enjoy the summer sun in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking we dig out that one of our favourites each and then republish it with a slight twist. So
yeah, we'll do a new introduction, maybe. The classic.
Yeah, be good. There are guests that I've forgotten we've had on. So
hidden gold. Can I put you on the spot? Who are you thinking is who you gonna pull out of the bag?
I'm thinking James Cox. I'm thinking we give that a really tight and nice edit. That's good listening for 2022. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be editing the audio. I'll leave it up to you. I don't know. Who will I go with? I mean, we just had the waiting list, so can't really pull that one out again.
No,
I don't know. Well, it'll come to me.
Plenty
as I
scroll
through the 120 episodes.
We've been busy. We've been busy.
Yeah. But what else have we been doing? We've been doing a little. We've got like a little sort of napkin book notes on 2021. Andy, 4 questions: favorite watch release, favorite new watch alert, biggest trend, thing we want to see less of. Do you want to start?
Sure. Favorite watch release in 2021. It's tough. You initially said, no, there's not been that much, but there's been quite a few watches out there this year. My shortlist consisted of things like the Explorer two-tone roller saw.
Yep.
That was on there. I thought that was quite cool, or the Tudor Chrono. But in the end, I went with the Cartier Solar Beat Tank Must.
Classic.
A new classic.
Yeah, well, new and old classic. Classic on the outside, innovative on the inside.
The first ever solar-powered Cartier watch. Very well priced. We've talked about it extensively. We've done a little bit of work with Cartier this year. It's my pick of 2021.
Yeah. I can't fault you on that. My pick is a little bit different, a little less classic. We were talking about this offline before, and you called me out.
Yeah, hype watch.
Yeah, and you said you said something like, it's just like it goes in and out of fashion, and I'm like,
yeah, it's trendy at the moment.
But I've always liked this guy, and it's true. So I'm standing by that. I am, of course, talking about Alain Silberstein's collaboration. He did a triptych, the second triptych of 3 watches with Louis Erard. The ones. There's one that had a particularly interesting case with sort of like semi-detached lugs. That I think were articulated. Wild design, a lot of primary colours, and I've always been a fan of his work, and these are
Before
really,
he was
really
cool.
Nice. Yeah, I mean,
I'll give it to you. You have you did show me Alain Silberstein. I wasn't across his work before you showed me many years ago. So I'll let you have it.
And now I've got classic regrets of like I should have bought it at the time when no one cared about it and like couldn't sell it for anything because it was,
Yeah.
ugly, bright, over the top watch design.
What are
And to be
these
fair, some
hands?
some of it is ugly, bright, and really over the top and legitimately ugly.
Such
Like
a fine
there's
line.
weird ones with like pink camouflage on them, like late in his career that I would avoid. But yeah, he's a cool guy, and I'm glad to see he's getting a bit more time in the sun.
Has
So
he always
that's
done watches with Louis Arat?
no. So he's
Yeah,
the
I didn't
story
think
with
so.
him. He went bankrupt in like 2010.
Who didn't?
Um, and it's still, I had a chat to him and he's really cut up about it, like still cut up about it. But he's done collaborations since then with like Max Busa, Romain Jerome, which is the guy behind Romain Jerome back then, is sort of behind Louis Rad now. So he's got some good relationships, and he's I think he's probably better as a watch designer rather than a watch brand owner.
Yeah, no, it's not for everyone, and that's a great collaboration
Yep.
for Louis Arat. I mean, I don't think they would have sold out a collection in the last decade,
Well,
so
I think
it's
they're
really
they're
strong
having
for
a
them.
whole new creative energy going on. So they're doing some cool stuff. Like not
Yeah,
just this. They've got some. We should maybe get Manuel on to have a chat. He'd be
yeah, I'm
interesting.
down.
So that's our favorite release, Andy. But what have you liked that you could actually put on your wrist? You mentioned before that last episode that you've bought a lot of watches this year.
Well, the one that I do have, pink Analdane Model 2 OT edition.
Nice. I would have said that,
Mm.
but I don't have it yet.
Few people do. Few people managed to score one so far. Obviously, it did sell out, but a few have been shipped, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. It's just so cool to look at. It's genuinely a nice watch. I'm really excited to. I basically want every single person that bought one to message us and tell us what they think.
Wow.
Yeah,
Even even
I want to have a
even the
conversation with you all. We should do an owners club, an Analdane owners club.
oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't hate that idea. Um, for me, I'm trying to think what my favorite watch in the world this year would be. So I'm gonna have to go with the best boring watch in the world.
Mm.
It can't be the fun over the top Anodane. It's gonna have to be a watch I picked up middle of the year. Grand Seiko SBGP009. I thought long and hard about the particulars of my perfect Grand Seiko, and this is it. And it's super boring.
Years you spent on this.
Yeah,
Years you spent thinking about this.
yeah.
This has been the longest incoming I think I've ever seen.
Well, I'm very slow to act. I'm all about the anticipation. Yeah, 40 millimeters, slender profile, drilled lugs, quartz movement, champagne dial,
Suits you.
classic oyster style case. Very boring, but will never get old.
It suits you. It's a very good choice. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Uh, biggest
That's
trend.
that.
Biggest trend of
Oh,
2021?
for me, I kind of got two
Mm,
colorful dials.
mm.
Looking at you, Tiffany. Which is sort of late to the trend really, but everyone's suddenly discovered that colorful watches are cool again. Nomos, Future Orange, that stands out as a great example. But also, and more importantly, maybe for you and I, watch brands suddenly going, "Oh, the world of digital media exists."
Mm.
Like maybe we don't spend all our money on ads in airports when no one's traveling. Maybe we can just advertise on Facebook. Like,
Yeah, or podcast.
yeah, podcast is great. I get
OT the podcast at gmail.com if you want a media kit
sure.
for those brands listening.
But I get like Longines ads on TikTok.
Yeah,
Like
TikTok. You mention TikTok every episode. Watch
it's
brands. Get on TikTok.
it's
Felix
how
is on
I it's
there.
how I get on. It comes up to my my what's coming up next, but it's where I get all my information and entertainment from these days.
Yeah.
What about you, Andy? What's your big trend?
I think obviously there's colourful dials, but I think we're sort of entering the age of elegance, as you kind of put it before.
What does that
Dress
mean?
watches. Dress watches are really strong, I think, at the moment. And maybe that's people exiting the pandemic a little bit.
Uh huh. Or they can't get sports.
Yeah, well, they can't get sports, and they go, oh, actually, a dress watch is quite nice. I have enough sports watches.
What dress
I
watch
want a
would you
dress
get?
watch.
You don't have any real dress watches, do you?
It's a good point. We've got our Anodane Field
It's
Watch,
not a dress watch.
Nomos, but that's not really dressy. It's probably the club's a bit more sporty, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're like
it's not super
theoretically
sporty.
they're dressy sports watches, but
Yeah,
you don't have like a Reverso, maybe
no.
a Cartier Tank Solomate must.
Maybe that's what I get next year for myself.
Mm.
It's a good choice.
Speaking of next year,
Mm.
what would you like to see less of?
I would like to see less. much, much less of a very specific shade of blue. I don't want to see it
The
anymore.
proprietary blue.
Yeah. Rhymes with Smiffany. I do not want to see that blue.
Yeah,
I don't want
sure.
to hear about it. I don't want to see it.
Hey, I have a speaking of colors. This is a brief tangent, but I'm going to go there. Do you know Disney have two proprietary colors? They're
Mm,
called Go Away Green and something blue that they use in their theme parks
okay, that
because
they
people
own.
just don't look at them.
So like
Like it's that.
Cadbury owns purple. That purple.
No, it's even yeah. They've done it, but they've worked out that this particular shade of sort of like it's like a kind of heritage dull green that no one
Mm,
likes looking at, and so
okay.
they paint like trash cans and like air conditioning things in that green, just
Right,
so
that's
that
smart.
yeah, it's fascinating. Anyway, what I want to see less of in 2022 is less reliance on Instagram. I think Instagram has, by and large, ceased being. Maybe this is where I'm at with Instagram, but ceased being like a fun place to learn and discover about watches, and more of a cycle to feed a handful of models and too much of an echo chamber. I'm really not enjoying the old app at the moment. Like I get more, as you said, out of TikTok and like WhatsApp groups and our Discord. Not to plug it for the 100th time this episode or this year, but yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Discord is a bit of a game changer, though, and I mean, I'm in a dozen Discords at the moment, and
sure.
it's
All
just
the
fun.
all the Call of Duty lobbies,
This just mechanical keyboards,
sure.
watches, sport, art. There's just
Dogs,
it's what, and they're very well moderated, right? So it's what I think Instagram was 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
it's a chat room. Like it's yeah.
Yeah, it's a multimedia platform. There's voice chats. It's yeah.
Yeah, I just think Discord, oh, not Discord, sorry, Instagram's become so sort of everything's tailored for it and
Mm.
everything's, that artificial, superficial stuff that I'm not into.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
Hey,
that.
speaking of Instagram and TikTok, we've got to get
Yeah.
our very own viral TikTok influencer on.
Oh, I mean, let's just do it. Let's get Miles Fisher on the show. Felix, today's guest is a repeat offender who we will forgive you
Oh
for
dear.
mistaking for Tom Cruise. He's an actor, golfer, coffee connoisseur, and more recently, TikTok influencer. Above all else, though, he is a very passionate watch collector who you might have caught on OT last year, or you've seen all over the watch internet. But welcome back, Miles Fisher. It's great to have you.
It's great to be with you guys. It really is. Andy, what's it like being 30 years old? I mean, is it
It's
like seeing in color for the first time? Is it just a different universe?
I'm seeing colors I've never seen before. Feeling pain in my knees I've never felt before. It's just this whole new experience. Yeah, it's my fourth decade, which is I
Wow.
know,
Congrats.
I know. I'm getting on
Ha-
grey
ha-
hairs. I had a haircut
mm,
a couple of days after my 30th. My barber says, "Oh, you've got like some white hairs, some grey hairs happening. I've never seen these before." So
really?
they've been there. Yeah,
Miles, I don't know you that well, but how far away are you from celebrating your 30th
5 years.
decade?
Look at him.
30th decade? Fourth decade?
I'm 8 years post that milestone. So
Oh,
I'm
sheesh.
sniffing 40. Um,
Jeez Louise.
I know, getting to be an old man. But listen, Felix,
Yeah.
huge win for the Scholz clan in Deutschland.
Yeah.
I mean, big time. Do you have any like Scholz for Chancellor paraphernalia, T-shirts or anything?
Hang on. You're going to have to fill me in on this. I don't know what's going on.
A man named Scholz just became the Chancellor of Germany after Angela Merkel stepped down after
Oh,
16 years.
wunderbar. Is it the same spelling? Scholz?
It certainly is, Doctor.
Wow. Well, also, I feel compelled to let you know that Schultz is essentially Smith.
Of course.
It's not an uncommon name.
Of course, but it's always
Uh,
fun, to rock around with like Schultz 21, political
Mm.
paraphernalia. Like
That's
get some
yeah.
T-shirts down
Okay.
under.
Yeah. That's a good call. I
Apparently,
don't think we're related.
in fairness, apparently he is, by all accounts, himself included, the most boring man on earth, which is like exactly what like Germany needs.
That's what
So
you want
definitely
for a
related
German
to Felix
chancellor.
then.
Oh,
Hardly.
make Nomos great again.
Ooh.
Almost great.
That could be my Schultz for chancellor slogan.
I just want to say two things before we get started.
Sure.
Is one, sincere thank you to both you guys. And you guys can't hear it, but just like slow clap from all the listeners. Like you guys got me through the pandemic.
Oh, thank you.
Truly, like over and over and over. Just delivering, and the storytelling, the interviews, the personality, true gratitude. And then second, congrats on selling out on these extraordinary and ordained watches, all 100 of them. I mean, massive props. That must be just terribly exciting.
Yeah, 60, not quite 100, but
60,
thank you.
60,
Thank you.
60,
Yeah, so we
60,
did 30 of
60.
each.
30 of each, rather.
Here's the pink I'm showing you now.
That is good.
Got it
That
on.
really is pink. As Felix says, that is proper Homer's donut pink.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not just me. Andy sort of like had me questioning myself whether or not this was a
Appropriate descriptor.
Yeah, but other people have seen it as well.
Yeah, it was interesting verbiage when you first brought it up, but it is with the white and the blue and the sprinkles and the texture of the enamel dial. It's very cool. It's very cool. We never set out to do it, so it's nice that people responded in that way. And if you're listening to this episode, it was probably a couple of weeks ago, and they're all gone, so we're really sorry. But yeah, Anil Dane, what a great brand to do it with. We couldn't have been happier.
And in the interview you did with him, now I can't unsee the
pencil?
Fingers holding the pencil, just as he was describing the
Lewis. What an interesting and charming guy. He is just
absolutely
such a stealthy personality. He's just kind of really casual, really laid back, and that's what we loved about him. And that sort of comes across in the Anil Dane brand as well. But I listened back when I edited that episode, and he's just so charming. I want to buy more watches from him.
Very much so. You're rooting for him within the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just great. I will say I have one little qualm. It's the silliest thing, but just the name and ordained. Every time I hear it, I'm like waiting for the third word. Just because if it was just ordain, but an ordain, I'm like, you mean an ordained minister? Like an ordained friar? Yeah. Like an ordained cut in the cloth? It's like, yeah, it's just one syllable short. It's almost like if you hear, I don't know, row your boat, but with one syllable gone. So it sounds like, row, row your boat gently down the stream there. Lemur, lee, life is but a dream.
So like an anchorman.
And you're just waiting for that last thing. It's like, an ordained what? What is ordained?
Well, it's like an anchorman when Will Ferrell's character says it when in Rome. And they're like, oh, he hears when in Rome. And he's like, and then? Yes, do tell.
Right.
You're like just waiting for the rest of it. But enough about that. We want to hear about Dubai Watch Week because that was, last month. You attended. You said you'd be our man on the ground. Tell us about the vibe and all that sort of stuff. But was this your first watch fair since kind of really entering the watch scene?
It was, and actually a few things. So I did get to scope it out a bit, but it overlapped with the American holiday of Thanksgiving, and so I had to leave kind of the day it actually officially started, but. Walked through and everything the day before. I was there courtesy of Audemars Piguet, cool. Which had an entire kind of weekend event prior to Watch Week and actually unrelated to it. And it was one of the most magic trips of my life. I mean, it was wild and was so grateful to go. Just totally off the top of my head, having never been to Dubai, which by the way is a long way from Los Angeles. It's a 16-hour flight. You don't even have to change your watch. I mean, it's a 12-hour time difference. So you're right on the other side of the globe. We flew over the North Pole. My goodness, Dubai is just extraordinary. Immaculately clean.
Yep.
Incredibly safe. Just this feeling of like super pro family values. I mean, literally, it's just a whole bunch of, being on the west side of America, I don't really ever see Russian families vacationing or Pakistani families vacationing. A very wholesome feel. And then it's just, I think the best way for me to describe it is in the video game of how to build a city from scratch, Dubai has every cheat code imaginable. Like literally, it's just like every single cheat code, infinite oil wealth, infinite royal wealth, in the audacity of the imagination to just, let's take your idea and just 100x it and do that everywhere with all the space. It is so over the top that you cannot help but be dazzled by it. I mean, it was just extraordinary. And so I got to go, I got an incoming call out of the blue from Audemars Piguet saying, "Hey, Miles, we'd love to fly you to Dubai. just as our guest and put you up and have you play golf with some of our pro sponsors. And
Nice.
I was like, I'd love to. That sounds great. What's the catch? Like, what do I do? I have to sing for my supper? Like, I know how these things work. And there was no catch. And in kind of taking it all in, it's the first trip I had really done since the pandemic, other than a trip to visit family with my children and family. It was so wild. It was really cool. So I gather, this is kind of AP. So the CEO of AP, Francois, was in his youth, I think, a professional golfer. And so this is something he's actually quite passionate about. And so it's kind of the real thank you to, high profile clients of theirs, of which I am not. I mean, to be perfectly clear, I own one AP watch. That is it. And for now, although let's come back to that, because I do want to talk about that. But truly, I mean, most of these people had $1.52 million collections. I mean, these are mega collectors. And it's about 60 quote unquote clients, but they're quote unquote family that they fly in from all over the world. I think North America only got 6 invites. Now, my guess is that because of the pandemic and whatnot, I think a lot of people turned down the invitation. I must have been well on the reserve list, but it was so cool. And, they sponsor so many players on the European tour. And, these courses are immaculate out there. You wonder, what on earth are the water bills? You're in the middle of the desert, and it's just the most verdant green golf courses ever. But it was really, really special. I just took a bazooka to my body clock. I couldn't have been more kind of jet lagged and pushed through.
Yep.
But the whole time on the side, I was kind of, I was enjoying the company and whatnot, but I wanted to talk to the head of marketing. I wanted to talk to the CFO of AP. I wanted to talk to kind of all of their executives and say, listen, what are you thinking, for Q4 of next year? How are you rolling this out? I'm sure they're like, who are you, 38-year-old American? But I'm fascinated by it. And really, if you think about it, it's just kind of a gift to their largest lifetime value clients. Again, I'm in my infancy there, but it blew my mind. And then I said, listen, you're so nice to have me out there. Can I just cover on my own an extra day, because it is Dubai Watch Week, and I'd really like to check it out. And so poked around. They were still kind of building it up, but people were there. I got to hang out with the guys from Watchbox. I got to walk through everything you hear about Dubai Watch Week, how it's so open. It's so friendly. There's not an agenda of selling. It really is social. It's all true. It was I don't know. It was A++. I'll have a sweet spot for Dubai for the rest of my life.
And now, Miles, I want to ask you a little bit about Dubai Watch Week in a second. But before that, I want to go back to the city of Dubai and maybe some spoilers for a future, chat we're about to have. Did you do any Mission Impossible 4 recreation moments? Climb up the Burj.
Oh my God, yes.
There was
to jump off. Any of that sort of gear going on?
There was a little bit. I did.
Nice.
Yeah. One that was fun actually was on the plane ride over. I mean, the plane ride over is half the fun. They were AP does it right. Let me tell you. So I'm sitting up front. I mean, I've got my own little suite. I took a shower twice at 40,000 feet. I mean, it's kind of wild. And then they have, so it's the Airbus, the A380, and they have the full standing bar in the back. So I did, I sat next to, I guess, across the cabin from me was a proper TikTok influencer, mega influencer, who's goes under the moniker Supercar Blondie.
Oh yes,
and
he's Aussie.
Oh yeah, yes. Well, he is German and she is Aussie. Yep. She's absolutely lovely. They both are, but they recognize me. Even sans deepfake, and we both were just kind of having fun and excited. They live in Dubai. And they said, well, let's do a sketch together. So I was like, all right, well, let's do something at the back of the plane at the bar. And I won't give anything away, but I will say, Tom Cruise doesn't drink, and he's used to flying on the side of the plane, not inside the plane.
Wow. creating content
on the fly.
Hopefully you can
Sky high.
stitch in. Is it Emirates as the carrier? You can.
Emirates was the carrier. Yeah. The other thing I'll say about the Dubai, which for an American is a little unusual, it's very elegant. It's nice, but my God, everything has that kind of perfume smell. That cedar perfume.
Yes.
You just and it's like, where does this come from? And it'll never leave. It's immediately in all your clothes. It's in every bathroom stall, every hotel lobby. I mean, literally, they must douse the.
They put it in the HVAC. They put it in the air conditioning.
Yeah, they must.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Custom scents. It's like a little diffuser that you put inside and makes everything smell lovely.
So on Dubai Watch Week, did you get a chance to see any watches, or were you sort of a bit, incognito at the time?
I was a little incognito. I mean, I have since, because of all the footage that has come out, have seen a lot, and then also just with these AP collectors. I mean, these guys roll, with briefcases of watches. I mean, it's like four wrist changes every day, which I'm all for.
Oh, you gotta.
I love it, but yeah, I mean, sitting in that first class cabin alone was some very serious hardware.
Sure.
And really, you almost think, my goodness, I don't know if I would really travel with a fully decked out diamond, Patek. And that's like just for the flight. And then you change into something a little more reasonable, just a full platinum piece, to go through customs. I was just wearing my AP 15450 the whole entire time. It's great. That's it.
You only took one watch, you fool.
So I have thoughts on this because I always see, and you see watch journalists, and I see friends, and I see people travel with 5, 10 watches, and I always think, first of all, you don't need that many watches for this trip, and I just view it as a burden. So whenever I was traveling, it's been a few years now, I would basically take the watch on my wrist, and that left me space to pick things up if I wanted to buy something overseas and bring it home. But it just becomes like a burden. I don't understand, what do people do with their watches when they're not with the other 8 when they're not wearing them? Surely you don't just leave it in the hotel safe or anywhere in the hotel room. Like,
I think you give it, and we were encouraged to leave it in like the proper safe with the concierge.
IP.
But even then, yeah, it does seem a lot. And how do you not have kind of subconscious anxiety the whole entire time? Because what happens if something goes missing, right? If it's in your home country, maybe you kind of know the proper, but you're in Dubai, it's like, oh, what?
Yeah, you don't know what to do.
Yeah, what are you talking about? What missing watch? It's tough.
One thing I always loved traveling to the Swiss watch fairs when they were a thing was customs would obviously go into a different mode where they would look at you and then they would put you in a separate room where they would check what watches you had, and they would get you for import duties.
Mm-hmm.
They'd use it as revenue raising, or they'd use it to make sure that you weren't, because obviously a lot of wheeling and dealing happens there. They'd try and sting you for whatever they could when you came in with your roll of gold Rolexes or Pateks or whatever. They go, "Yep, we want a cut of that. You're bringing that into our country
for sure." I think if they see any like official box and papers, then they're really going to
red flag
it. Absolutely. Cool. But I will say, I did see some cool watches, because in the Mall of Dubai, which is so, I set out to the Mall of Dubai, the biggest mall in the world, and I know in there is the biggest Rolex store in the world.
Sure.
And so I go in and I'm trying to find, on foot after entering the mall, 30 minutes later, I come upon this Rolex store. It is magnificent. It's the biggest I've ever seen. And they actually have stock. But I was trying to coordinate with someone to meet them there. And it's like, why are they not? And they're like, oh, no. This is the small Rolex store. No, the big one's on the other side. And it was just nuts. And then I got lost between the largest indoor aquarium and the indoor ski mountain between the two Rolex shops. It really, the scope is impossible to explain. All of it owned by, the Siddiqui and Sons, which is an interesting moniker, by the way, because I will say, it seems like the sole Siddiqui representative for media is their like lovely daughter, who seems like lovely, but like she kind of got gypped on the name of the family business, huh? It's like, how about Siddiqui and Sons and our media-friendly daughter?
Siddiqui and kids. Did you get to this?
Siddiqui and kids.
Did you get to the bigger?
Siddiqui for the next
Did you get to the
generation.
bigger Rolex boutique?
I did. I
Did they
mean,
have stock?
and all the other, they did have a bit of stock. They did have
Yeah.
a bit of stock. It was, yeah, they had a bit. I mean, much more so than you'd see certainly anything in North America, and the other shops as well. I mean, the Omega shop had everything except for the 321. And then the stores were just continuing to be like rebuilt too. Like the
Yep.
Longier store actually had a bunch of Longiers in there, and the IWC was being 3x'd in size, and I guess everything there really is Siddiqui and Sons is the watch economy in Dubai, but certainly they bring it, and everybody's just so polite, including the Uber drivers, and I'll just mention this because it really stuck out. Almost every Uber driver that I talked to, kind of halfway through the drive, would be like, I would compliment the city, talk about how amazing it was, and then they'd say, yeah, this whole system of electing a new leader every 4 years, I don't know how much that's working out for you guys. I was just like, whoa.
It's a hot take.
Noted.
So tell us about some of your favorites from Dubai Watch Week then, some of the releases or things that you saw that caught your attention.
Well, I'm more interested in just hearing about the personalities behind it. I've always, one of the things I've loved so much about watches. I'm a collector of people and of stories, and I think watches are as good of a passport as any, just to begin a conversation. They all have history, and to kind of form a relationship. And so, the seeing. And obviously the tastes are a little bit different. Like I've never been into Beauvais, and learning more and more about Beauvais through just the absolute passion of the owner and even his daughter, Rex Heppy, just how kind of sincere and almost modest this guy is, this young, almost new Picasso of watchmaking. And some of these brands that are only putting out 20 pieces a year, and how hyper, and again, I'm not a car guy, but if I were, I've never really seriously eyed Bugattis. Well, it's kind of the same here at Dubai Watch Week. I mean, there's a lot of very, very over the top watches, but I found them to be pretty extraordinary. So forgive me for not knowing the name, but what is this watch where it's each digit rotates in the circle around, and it's just one.
Is it Ludovic Bellard's
yes,
upside down watch?
Yes. Yeah. I thought that was pretty stunning. I've never seen anything like that. I finally got to see a Chepik, which I really, really enjoyed. You turn that thing over, and the finishing on it it's really splendid with the micro rotor and those three kind of little bridges. It was great. And then for me, seeing some of these APs, seeing guys playing golf wearing APs, worth over $500,000, and those just being kind of their like all day bang arounds. The nonchalantness, and also just seeing, my goodness, some European men just wearing a lot of jewelry, period. Necklaces, chokers,
nice.
Like cuffs,
bangles.
It's good for them.
So Miles, after your experience, both with AP and at Dubai Watch Week, if you could have brought one watch home with you, what sort of really captured your imagination there?
Honestly, I have the as far as AP goes, I have the one that I dream about. Just the 37 millimeter blue dial standard Royal Oak. Like that's it. I can't wait for my grandchildren to take that after my children have worn that for a bit. Like I'm very happy with my small, modest collection. So I really don't have a good answer. I'm not really pining. Next up on my list is a perpetual calendar, and I'm looking at a JLC Atmos. It's
Very
like, why would
cool.
I have a
Oh, nice.
perpetual on my wrist? Like the Atmos will run beautifully for 100 years. Um,
I like it.
so
I
that
like
to
it.
me, see, my philosophy is, and this is this is every house's nightmare, but I don't understand why one would own more than one watch per maison.
Hmm.
Again, I'm kind of in my infancy of
Mm.
collecting, but if I came into a whole bunch of money
Mm-hmm.
and I were to buy 3 cars, why would I buy 3 Ferraris? Like, how about buy one Ferrari and then buy a Porsche and then buy an Aston Martin? So it's like, let's get into Germany. Let's get into Italy. Let's get
Mm-hmm.
into England. Let's really learn.
Mm.
And then when you're forced in the constraints of just owning one watch, then it has to kind of do something that none of the other watches have in your collection while simultaneously being core to the DNA, a proper classic of the house. It really gets specific and personal. And I just think, I mean, of course, I understand why. Look, I'm a guy. I find a pair of slacks that fits. I'll just say that's good enough for me. Give me 3 of those in 3 different colors, and that solves the slacks problem. But
Mm.
what I love about watches is how much they can heighten a sense of occasion.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, all senses of occasion have been obliterated over the last 2 years, right? Like, why would we ever wear a coat and tie again? Well, you wear a coat and tie to honor the occasion. And so I don't. I think so much about, okay, what do I really want to get that is utterly classic, that is unique, that I won't get from any other house. And it's difficult because I'll give you an example. I would love a Longa,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought about it a lot. And honestly, having held one and worn one, the Odysseus is just it for me, for my use case and what I would like, and then the storytelling, etc., around it. And so, I tried to pursue it honestly. I've
Yep.
gotten to know the head of the West Coast for Longa. I have taken that person out for several meals. I've really gotten to think about it. And I don't even know if I should be sharing this, but the truth of the matter is, you have to buy, it's not just that you have to buy a Longa, it has to be a Longa 1 or more. So it
Yeah.
can't just be like a Saxonia thin.
Mm.
And then once you buy that watch, then you have the right to buy an Odysseus, and the 18-month begins. And so I said to him, I was like, so essentially it will be kind of $76,000 to buy an Odysseus, and then I get a Longa 1 for free. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, well, I just think, to me, like, I have to find someone to gift this Longa 1 to, because it breaks my own philosophy.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting. So if you go on Chrono 24, it's priced exactly for that issue. That it is exactly the bare minimum Longa 1 plus that. And I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm figuring out a little bit more how Chrono 24 in the larger marketplace is pricing this thing. So you either can go on the gray market,
Mm-hmm.
or you buy, you have to buy the Longa 1, and in my case, gift it to someone. Or the third choice would be to find someone who has bought Longas before, and then, try to charitably plead the case, wire them the money, and then take that one thing. But I understand the principle of lifetime value. I understand that you want a client who buys 10 watches from you over the lifetime. But for me, I'm not there yet, because what I'm trying to gain ultimately is as much fluency in watches, period.
Mm.
So, it's going to take me at least 10 years to know as much as I possibly can. Then I might try to get multiple pieces. But at that point, I think the real pleasure then is in giving gifts.
Mm.
So Andy, tell me, because you have multiple Rolexes, like,
Yeah.
why would you have more than one Rolex?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably owned at least 2 dozen Rolexes in my life.
And what are 8 Rolexes doing more for you than like 4 Rolexes are?
Oh, I mean, honestly, there's stuff that like I haven't seen in a year, and that's when I tend to start to sell things. If I've I keep it in the safety deposit box, and I haven't visited. I mean, the last visit to my safety deposit box was February, and like there's stuff in there that I've not seen.
Do you remember what's in there, or are you going to be like,
Not
whoa?
not entirely. But I don't. Yeah, I don't discriminate. I often think, what do I need 8 watches for in general anyway? Like
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
too many. There's 2 watches on my desk right now at least that I can see that are just on my desk. They're not, on my wrist. I think when it comes to, like, there are certain brands that it makes a lot of sense for, and there are certain brands that it doesn't. So would I understand someone who collects exclusively Hublot and has a massive Hublot collection? No. Rolex, I get a little bit more, especially when it comes to vintage pieces, because there is an evolution that you can kind of track, and sort of when you start to own different references, you can appreciate the changes over the years. And I think that's the same for Porsche as well. A lot of friends that collect Porsche, and yeah, you got a 911. Why do you need more? But their approach tends to be they want to own as many as they can to try and find the best one. I mean, there's less investigating when it comes to watches anyway. And I mean, ultimately, like, it's a safe brand to own. I probably honestly wouldn't spend the same amount of money on other brands as I would on Rolex, because you get,
Because you can get it out again.
yeah, if you ever need to, you can get it out. You get a call for a Rolex, a new Rolex. You can say yes and then work out if you like it, and if you don't like it, well, no big deal. You're going to get your money back, or you'll double it these days. So it's still that brand where you don't really spend the money, and I like that, because I don't like that ultimate consumption. I don't want to be the guy that really consumes the whole product at the end of the day. And that's just, and I think a lot of people share that, but I don't have the same, I don't have like multiple of the same current Rolexes.
Well, you're getting close. You're getting.
I'm very close to having a dial variation, but like, you'd be silly not to. But I don't have a Pepsi and a Batman or a Batgirl. Like, I don't have two, and I don't have precious metal versions of the same watches. I think that gets a little bit pointless, because if you can afford a gold Daytona, then why would you have steel? And
I was just going to ask this sort of on that note. Like, do you think would it bother you, Miles, if you've got one watch per brand, but if all those watches are stainless steel sports watches with a black or blue dial? Would that bother you, or would you be like, I need a dress watch, I need a chronograph, I need
Yes, that's correct. And so, which brand would you have the chronograph in? Which brand would you have the dress watch in? And absolutely, for me, I would find that as just a bit laziness on
the
my
same
part.
deal.
So, and that's what I have. So right now, I'm wearing just a Moser. It's a Pioneer Center Seconds that the collective did with this beautiful green fume dial. It's the only green dial I have. My AP is the only blue dial I have. My Cartier is the only square tank, with a crocodile strap that I have. My IWC Flieger is the only chronograph I have with black. So each one has to fill a slot while also simultaneously being classic to the house. So it's with constraints. I was an English major in college, and the hardest part was always the constraints. Give me 20 pages to write an essay, I can do that in a piece of cake. Give me 4 pages to write an essay, now I have to think about what I'm saying. And
I think also, Miles, you have a very clear mindset on what you want when it comes to collecting, and you consider yourself a collector, as would we. I don't think that I'm a collector.
But see, no, you're a collector because you're thinking about the investment value. I'm assuming all of this is money out the window. I mean, I've always felt, the most expensive suit you ever buy is the one you never wear. So every single watch I wear on the regular. I never think about resale value. And I've had 2 watches now that I've enjoyed, but I knew they weren't right for the collection. And so I gave them to dear friends and made a celebratory occasion out of it, and have since instilled passion in them for watches. Granted,
let me rephrase, because I mean, investment is like, I don't think about it as much as it might have just come across. I kind of like, I've got watches that I haven't, like, I would have a couple of Rolex worth of watches that I just haven't touched, and I'm too lazy to sell them. So I actually don't like selling watches. I do enjoy buying them, but I don't enjoy getting out of them. So that's my problem with the investment side of things. And it is expensive and a hassle, and I sort of lay pretty low when it comes to selling stuff. So I don't look at it and go, I can sell it. But if someone says, oh, I've got this steel Rolex, do you want it? I just think, oh, you'd be an idiot not to, because
Mm.
eventually that's going to stop. And I like to, I like to experience and wear things that work out if I like it, but I don't have the same mindset of you as you, as kind of, oh, I want to get a chronograph, or I want to get a square watch, or I want to own something from this brand or that brand. I kind of I wait until a watch sort of like speaks to me, or I really obsess over it for a long time, and then I work out how to afford it, or how to buy it, or how to get it. But I don't. I think that's where we differ in our approach to watches, and I think because we have the luxury of having access to so many watches and having so many things presented to us, and being able to try things on. Like I've got 3 loan watches upstairs at the moment. It's a luxury that most people don't get, so we get to kind of continuously get hands on, and it all becomes a bit blurry of like what you need and what you want. And it's kind of, I always know that I'm going to have a couple of dress watches that are going to be sent out to me. I mean, I got some dress watches. We just did the the OT unordained, so that scratches an itch. So I kind of exist in this point of constant excess in watches. Like I have too many, more than I could need, more than I want.
Mm.
So if I am going to spend more money on watches, it should be for a good reason, because I feel pretty happy with what I have, and I don't lust after.
But you're not a
Hey?
I don't think you, and I wouldn't say I am either. I'm not like a completionist. I'm not trying to complete a
Yeah,
set of watches.
I'm.
Whereas
If anything,
maybe you are, Miles.
if anything, I want it to stop. But I and I often think about consolidating. I often think about selling most of it, and just buying like leveling up and start buying precious metal
Right.
pieces, and then
Getting a really nice sapphire Hublot.
or anything I could and really like level up into that next level of appreciation. Which could be done, but I don't know.
Well, I think that's part of the beauty of it, because
Yeah.
the answer is we're both right.
Yeah.
There's no right way to do it, right?
Yeah,
That's
no.
the beauty of the philosophy of watches. And Felix, to answer your question, no, I'm not a completionist at all. I mean, there is no such thing. By the way, I really only have 6 watches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Sure.
They all have an occasion. So this morning I was at the beach with my young girls, and I was just rocking my Soof Helsinki.
Oh, that's cool.
Just
Yeah,
on, and it's just awesome. And I was jumping in and totally on little NATO strap. And it also has, I think it is a bit of a quote unquote Tiffany blue dial. But we'll leave that for later.
I know the one you're talking about. Yep.
And it's great. But no, for me, again, all I want is fluency. I want to see anybody. See, I love history. And that's why watches totally fit the contours of my imagination. I'm reading this book right now I'd recommend called, the History of the World Through 12 Clocks. And
Okay.
it's magnificent. I mean, it starts with, the sundial in Greek antiquity. The most contemporary it gets is like the 1500s. But
Sure.
I'm fascinated by that. I'm deep into, this story of discovering longitude, and I kind of getting into water clocks now. And so I'm always fascinated, right? I'll talk to someone, I'll see them wearing, a nice watch, and I'll kind of come up and just compliment them. And, and then they'll say, like, even some of these AP clients, I mean, these are people who are lovely, lovely people, but they have contributed significant amount of income to these watches. And, maybe they'll own 15 AP, and I'll say, what do you think of Longa? And they're like, what's that? I've never heard of that. And I just think, my goodness, we're observing totally different sports. I'm fascinated by all over the world. What is the difference in German? Why Dresden versus glass shoe? All of that, the nuance of that. Honestly, watches, again, they're just a passport to, hey, let's turn 30 seconds into 2 minutes. And if we can turn this 2-minute conversation into 5 minutes, well, maybe we can have a conversation, and then maybe it begins a relationship. That's it. And watches are what got us there. And so that to me is it. I mean, I'm not jonesing for that next purchase. What I'm jonesing for is kind of realizing something about the philosophy of possessions, and what we're, why these things which are so beautiful that none of us need, and yet every 5 minutes it'll give me just a little dopamine hit.
So Miles, I want you to keep that big history hat on for a sec. Where it's the end of the year when we're airing this. What if you're looking back, what has 2021 been in the watch space? What are the big defining either watches or moments or, trends, releases? What sort of stood out
I
for
think
you?
I think the biggest thing in 2021 has been the proliferation of the continued extension of podcasts and YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think that's provided the greatest nutrition to the watch community,
Mm-hmm.
which legitimately, and I'm not sucking up to you guys. You guys are on the forefront on. I mean, it's one thing to do a couple episodes of a podcast.
Yeah.
It's another to do, 50 of them and then to continue on and feel like you're just getting started. I mean, look, my gateway drug was a man named Timothy Mosso. Like, I just I can't get enough of it. Because he's just got so much to give. And look, he has a different horsepower to his brain than any of us. I mean, it's just unreal. But again, for me, and I hung around, I've written him so many fan letters. He's never responded. I tried to meet him at Watchbox.
Whoa.
He's never reached out. But to me, it's I found out so I've honestly consumed, Coom 100+ hours just of his,
Wow.
YouTube alone. And so for me, it's
Yeah.
well, I'm really fascinated on hearing about his pre-Navy days. Tell me about when you were an undergrad at Dartmouth. What was that like? Who, and I think most people they don't, I'm just no. I want to know Tim. That's what I want.
I don't care about the watch.
Yeah, I do care about the watch, but really it's the thing behind that. And then what sustains you and what is he looking for? So just to bring it back, I think that's been the moment for me. So again, I don't know much about China. You need
Mm-hmm.
these weird hacks to even access the internet in some of our westernized apps. So listening to, the Waiting List podcast, hearing these 4 people talk about watches as social signifiers, the almost social anthropological notes is so different to Western ears. To me, I think that's been a big, big boon that didn't necessarily exist before. And then again, I'm crazy, but I'm fascinated less with the pieces themselves and right now, what I'd love to know if, Felix, if you could write one of your brilliant long pieces for, the FT or the, any of Waco's publications, I'd be fascinated to know who are non-executive directors of luxury brands. I just found a classmate of mine from Harvard is
Mm-hmm.
a board of director for Richemont, and I'm
Oh, that's
what?
cool.
How on earth? She's a lawyer for human rights, and I'm whoa, 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 whoa. Who is that lady, and what's her story, and how did she get that vaulted position? Because not to give away all of my ambitions, but when I'm in my mid-50s, what could be better than being a non-executive director of one of these watch groups? I'm fascinated by that. Who are those people? And so, I'm do I even have to buy, should I buy Richemont stock just to have access to their quarterly reports? That's the stuff I'm fascinated by. Everything else is, is interesting. I mean, look, I don't necessarily get the watch market right now. I mean, obviously everything is bananas. I do get it. I do think in a way there's a little bit that is sad of just kind of Veblen economics on steroids. A whole lot of people got a whole lot wealthier just sitting on their couch. Everybody wants what they can't have. The downside of that, right, in America is people paying $500,000 to scam their kids into college because right? It's it's a limited resource. There's only so many slots, and rich people want what they want when they want it right now. And so you see that with watches where it's just utterly, utterly bonkers, these prices that are going. And I find it sad because then, I've talked to a couple of these people who were paying, funny money, crypto money on big time watches, and they don't know a darn thing about watches. All they know is about status. And yet I would push back on, the Ariel Adams of the world, who every second they get are well, the problem is, Instagram and all these people, it's just building up the hype cycle. It's whoa, without Instagram, I would have never gotten into this. Without it is a wonderful gateway and a wonderful door open. And then there's no right answer. Everybody is allowed the dignity of their own interests and hobbies. So did that completely avoid your question, Felix? The answer is I have no idea.
Yeah, no, that was a really no, it was good, and I hear what you're saying about the guys in Richmond. Like I was talking to someone about a new factory setup, and they're like, yeah, the guy that did this, that put this sort of new manufacture together, has done like 50 Richmond workshop setups. I'm like, who is that?
Exactly.
Who has the job of like, watch logistics, supply chain, something. Yeah. But the question I've got for you, and you may have kind of already answered it, but I'm going to push you to be a bit more explicit about it. This year, for you, what has really sort of jumped the shark in watch sense?
Well,
If you want to call out a brand, that's great.
Jumping the shark. No, I mean, look, I think we may now be at peak Francois Paul Journe. It seems it. I'm very interested to see what happens with De Bethune. I mean, those are extraordinary, just extraordinary things to behold. The mechanics, I am fascinated. I think some of the materials being used is really, really exciting. By the way, I see the same thing in fashion, like the actual tech materials going into ski clothes and heat clothes and things that are reading your heartbeat in real time. Like that is real innovation. And so for me, some of these, I mean, the mirror polishing on some of this titanium is absolutely bananas. I think one of the unsung here, because it's kind of a fashion brand or whatnot. What Chanel is doing right now that stuff is just, let me drool over that for 30 minutes. And apologies, Andy, but frankly, even just what Hublot has done with some of the sapphire, it is.
Definitely Hublot's killing it.
I do find, just because I have always been used to a bracelet of one form or the other. I love straps and I do like proper dress watches, but I go through a lot of different paces throughout the course of the day. Like I need something that's sweat proof. I need something that's sand proof. And now with these micro adjusts, like these bracelets are so darn comfortable. It does seem a little bit that, I want to say what separates the boys from the men is like, well, are they also manufacturing their own bracelets? That's absolutely rubbish, because one of my buddies here in LA, who's one of the greatest watchmakers, I think, alive, Joshua Shapiro. I mean, what Shapiro has done is absolutely amazing. And they're not manufacturing a bracelet, but also like this guy who was a former children's educator has built an incredible team from scratch, and that's all in its infancy. So it takes a long time. I do really like a good bracelet. I have a hard time getting into Patek, to be honest. I just don't know how. When I think of a whole bunch of brands, I can kind of put a name and a face to kind of represent the brand. Sure. And what's strange is, with Patek, obviously it's a fellow named Stern. And by all accounts, he's actually, from what I've heard, like a very nice kind of shy guy who, once you talk to him, will like talk as long as you want. But he just seems so inaccessible. But maybe that's just from, Johnny America here on the West Coast. Like, yeah, he's inaccessible because he lives in Switzerland, pal. So I don't know.
How would you be? You'd have such a hard time drawing a line, because everyone would just want to get up in your grill. Everyone would want to use you. It would be such a curse. It would be lovely, but it would also be this double-edged sword of like, every single person wants to meet you. Every single person that you're friends with genuinely is constantly turning down, requests to meet you. The first thing anyone ever says to you is going to be, around a Nautilus or an Akron or Tiffany. And look, I think it's the same as, the CEO of Rolex, where, back to Dubai Watch briefly. I found it really fascinating that he was there before it was there. But there's these photos of him talking with Recep and, bumping into different people and interacting. And it was amazing to see him there. And why wouldn't he be? He's the CEO of a watch brand. But you'd just have to be so careful with limiting accessibility just for your own sanity and your own well-being. So I find it really interesting, and I can sympathize with them to an extent. And yeah, I mean, everyone just wants a piece, and you'd have to be really careful. But hey, we need to talk about something else, because last time we spoke, you'd done some different stuff, with the with Tom Cruise. I think it was the election videos from memory had probably
Right.
just come out, the second one. And over the last 12 months, Miles, you've upped the ante. You have become TikTok famous. Everyone is, resharing your videos. You sort of told the Supercar Blondie story of being recognized with the deepfake videos that you kind of kill, and you've used it as a way to draw awareness to the technology in itself. But tell us what it's been like for you, and sort of, as a 38-year old hopping on TikTok and and just dominating the space.
It's been a long time coming.
Uh huh.
Let me start there. I mean, let's it's bittersweet,
Uh huh.
Andy. Let's take Tom Cruise out of it for a second.
Yeah.
Every day of my life, and this is not hyperbole,
Mhm.
every day of my adult life, certainly since uni, somebody has come up to me and said, "Hey, you look like another person." Every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've gone through cycles of it. And at first it was really cool. I mean, look, when I was a young guy, I love Tom Cruise movies.
Yeah.
Who didn't? He was the coolest. And Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise, and we're talking just mega global famous for 40 years.
Yeah.
Every town, I think in the world, but certainly in America, there's a guy who's been told hey, you kind of look like Tom Cruise. I mean, literally for my parents, I think it was yeah, you look like a young JFK. It's just it's what do you mean? You mean I have brown hair and
Yeah.
but I've gotten it every day of my life, and it's been tough. It's been tough. I mean, it ruined my acting career.
Mhm.
That I know.
Huh.
And then it really kind of soured me on this. I gave acting a pretty good shake.
Yeah,
I've been
you
in
did.
about 50 movies and TV shows, and it just never broke through. And I've now had, since I've left the entertainment industry, I've had studio heads come up to me and say, "Hey, I just want you to know, we really wanted you as the lead of that part, and it was down to you and the other guy. And after you did the final audition, all the suits gathered backstage, and this is nothing personal, but we said, well, do we want this guy or do we want the Tom Cruise guy? And nobody
Yeah.
wants the Tom Cruise guy,
Oof.
particularly when Tom Cruise is alive." and and then on top of that, if it were anybody else, if it were another big A-lister, Leo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt, I'd probably find a way to get to know that, Tom Cruise is the last of the last of the last. Tom Cruise has never been as a guest star on a single television show once, ever. Tom Cruise has never done a commercial for anything, ever. Never a whiskey ad in Japan, has never sold out for anything ever. He's the last of the last. And so I've just never been able to escape it. And I've really kind of, I mean, like I said, it ruined my career, and it is what it is. And around the time I was 30, I kind of ducked out, and I started this coffee business, which I'm very proud of, and has become a global
Bixby.
concern. And Bixby's one of our brands. We have a whole bunch of brands from all over. Actually, relevant to the TikTok, I got into this. I helped a very young influencer launch a coffee brand that we're involved with called Chamberlain Coffee. This girl, Emma Chamberlain.
Oh yeah.
And she's extraordinary. And when we started working and helped create Chamberlain Coffee, she was 19 years old and she was on TikTok. And I'm 38. I'm feeling almost like a boomer, which I'm not. But I have no business on TikTok. And about 3 years into this coffee thing, the way to market coffee, of course, is through social media. I'm good at that. And I started making these walk and talk videos, that did well, and they got thousands of comments. And 1 out of 3 comments was, "Hey, when did Tom Cruise start a coffee company?" And I was like, "Oh, brother." But it just makes people happy. it just makes people happy. And so I was like, listen, just lean into this and be creative again. So, I did this Tom Cruise running for office thing, and that was really fun because it was a real challenge. I had to sprint and whatnot. Anyway, somebody sent me kind of 6 months after that went viral a link, and it was the video I had shot, but it was like with Tom Cruise. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, what happened? And it was a deepfake. And I was like, this is really creepy.
Yeah.
Period. Like, deepfakes, creepy and weird. And but I got in touch with the guy, and he is just off the charts, crazy genius, mad talented young guy who is kind of the leader in the space. I mean, there really are about 4 people kind of at his level. And so I made this other YouTube video, and I was like, for the last 3 seconds, we should do a deepfake. And it was so good and so subtle, nobody noticed.
Yeah.
And anyways, fast forward 6 months after that, and his name is Chris Ume, and he really, I mean, you want to talk about the Picasso of deepfakes. This guy's on the next planet. But he was thinking of moving to Los Angeles. He got an offer from Matt and Trey, who created South Park. Which, by the way, if you could just imagine the chaos of Matt and Trey having the keys to the kingdom of the deepfake world. Oh my goodness. Nobody gets saved. But I was the only guy he knew in LA, and he just said, hey, listen, can I ask you some advice? I don't know anything. I said, 100%. And started kind of giving him advice as though I would a younger sibling. And he said, hey, listen, by the way, the model has already been set up. Essentially, this is all supercomputer stuff, but you feed thousands and thousands of hours of Tom Cruise footage in, laid against footage of me. And it's artificial intelligence, and it just continues to improve. But he's like, it's already done. So, if you ever want to just send me a clip of anything, I can now just run it through the supercomputer, and in 48 hours, there you go, for $0.00. And I was like, what? So amazing. I sent him a little video, and 48 hours left, I had kind of Tom Cruise saying what I was saying. And I thought, well, this is weird. And so I wanted to test algorithms. And so I posted it to Instagram, and I posted it to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh yeah, and this Emma girl is big on TikTok. So I downloaded TikTok and uploaded to that. And a couple days later, I was like, all right, well, the Instagram has gotten, a bunch of views, but my friends are like, hey man, this is weird. What is this? And I was like, oh, and I took it down, and the same thing on LinkedIn. And then a few days after that, on a jog, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think I uploaded it to that TikTok app. And I opened up TikTok, and it had millions of views and 50,000 comments. And I was like, holy amazing. Smokes.
Incredible.
So what does any maniac do? I made more videos and I uploaded them. And a week later, it had just gone. I mean, it was a major global news story. And that's when it got really scary. Because the story was not meet interesting guy from California. The story was deepfake is here and your family needs to be scared.
Yeah.
And truthfully, right? And this was cover of Le Figaro, cover of, the FT weekend, global stuff, and CNN and Fox News and whatnot. Yeah. And it is, by the way, I don't want to be small about this at all. This technology is here.
Yeah.
And it's very frightening. Yeah. And this is the bleeding edge, and this is just the beginning. And obviously there's major downsides. It's probably a bit rich for me to sit here and say, look, I don't want to be, part of the deepfake conversation. Because I find myself now as kind of the unofficial face in the middle of this whole thing.
Yeah, ironically.
And so what I've done is really, again, let's just go back to the entirety of my life. Every single day being told, hey, you resemble someone else. And look, I've tried a lot, and I'm proud of certain things I've done. I've had an acting career, whatever. I started this coffee business. I have my own podcast, which I'm rather proud of. And no matter what I have done, it has never risen above the noise of, hey, you look like someone more famous than you. There's just nothing I can do. It'll never happen. And so I have thought to myself when I'm down and out, it's like, well, man, like Tom Cruise didn't give his commencement address at Harvard. Tom Cruise can't play guitar. Tom Cruise can't speak all these other languages. So all these bag of tricks that I have, I'm like, let's plug this into this idea. And I've really just kind of created this character that just cracks me up of Tom Cruise is 59 years old, right?
Yeah.
Most people on TikTok aren't over 30. The irony, of course, is like none of them really know who this guy even is. And so I'm trying to think of like this guy who's just trying to like relate to his kids, just like, hey, I'm just like, okay, listen up, TikTok. Today, we're going to talk about how to unclog a toilet. You know, this idea of just like, hey, stars, they're just like us. Like, I remember when like John Travolta first got on TikTok and I was like, I'm sure he's a nice guy. This is so lame, just so
cringe.
lamesville. And I was like, how fun if this is. And so what I'm delighted is, you know, it's fascinating, right? Because TikTok, kind of like Reddit, like part of the beauty of TikTok is the upvoting of comments. And so it's become this perfect Rorschach test that has proven like this is hyper realistic synthetic media. I have reached out to Tom Cruise's team. I've offered them the passcode. I have never profited off this at all. Ethics matter to me. The sad thing, guys, is like deep down, at this point, I've got nothing else to prove. I just want Tom Cruise one day to be like, you know what? You're a good kid, Miles. You're a good guy. Like, that's all I want. And like, I don't know. I feel like his team's like shut me out. Like, I don't know. But what I do know is, you know, we've gotten 500 million views and I've got a gazillion more ideas for videos and I'm just going to keep on doing them and they make people happy. And, you know, I just hope one day someone's going to be like, hey, you kind of look like Miles Fisher, because it's never happened.
I love it.
Yeah,
And
right.
you fooled Justin Bieber as well.
It's fooled. I mean, a lot of people have seen the deep time. I mean, it's mind bending. Look, more people have watched my videos in 24-hour cycles than will ever buy tickets to this man's cinema ever again. I don't know how to parse that.
Oof.
Like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do with that?
That's flex.
But I gave him
That's a Miles flex.
I offered him the password and all of that. And also, he has these 2 movies to release. But listen, to bring it back to our favorite subject, it is so fun to wear my watches in that. I just did a video in like Grand Seiko where I speak Japanese, and the characters that I've worn a whole bunch of things. So it's fun. It's lighthearted. I'll never take cheap shots at, you know, this isn't about his religion or none of that. I'm just going to lean into the creative joy. And I really consider it art. I mean, all these sketches are fun. What people don't know, for example, there's a video of me singing, you know, him doing a lip sync to like a George Michael song.
Great.
Well, what people don't know is that's actually me covering the George Michael song. In fact, I did 19 vocal tracks alone for the choir in the background, and that on Spotify's gotten. So to me, it's art within art within art. I'm really trying to go meta with the covers of the covers.
Layers.
On TikTok and on deepfakes, I was watching a video of Rami Malek eating some chips, and I'm not sure if it was.
Listen, Felix, I know lockdown is tough over there, but if that's what floats your boat these days, you need to get out.
I mean, I've got some very specific interests.
You're big on TikTok, Felix. You're very into it.
I'm very on board for TikTok as a platform. I barely open Instagram anymore these days. No, so this guy who has a very, very good Rami Malek impersonation, and he's clearly a very talented like facial actor. Like he has the mannerisms of Rami Malek and bears, much like yourself, more than a passing resemblance to Rami Malek. I couldn't tell if it was just him or if there was elements of deepfake or if it was CGI fading in and out of his normal face. How is there a way you can work it out? Like, what are the tells as someone that, you know, wants to be aware of?
That is kind of part of the arms race. In a way, it's kind of algorithms versus algorithms. So obviously the utility of being able to prove that something is deepfake will be of tremendous value. And clearly, you know, when you get into geopolitical, right, like it's like, wait, did Putin really say that or did he not say it? Like that's probably terrifying. As is, and I don't want to downplay this, as is, you know, sexual violence, right? The porn and all of that. I mean, it's awful. It's 99.9% women, particularly vulnerable women and of minorities. It's very scary right now, but I think the future vision of what it could be is really incredibly uplifting. I mean, look, the future of the internet is visual, right? And as we get into the metaverse, what that means, it's not going to be, I mean, the metaverse is here, right? The metaverse is Minecraft. It's like, that's a real economy. That's really going on in the world. It's been going on for a long time. But it's not going to be all cubes and pixelation, right? Nor is it going to be, cringy Mark Zuckerberg's vision. It is going to be, I don't know. It's like when you hear people, I'm going off from your question. There's a little bit of an uncanny valley, right? That and the technology is getting better. It's not, the question I get asked a lot is like, hey, what app are you using? Like, no.
Yeah, sure.
I'm using like the world's best supercomputer and like the guy who wrote the software that the Mandalorian like used. Like, this takes
Amazing.
months and months and months and months and supercomputers and everything. But a sign of things to come. And and then it also falls into everything with Web3, with NFTs, with tokens. It's like when I was early on trying to figure out NFTs, and someone was explaining it, we're like, no, it would follow potentially that 20 years from now, young people are going to be like, wait a minute, you spent like $10 million on a painting, which was literally like paint on a piece of paper that like was framed.
Yeah, wow.
Like, what were you doing, idiot? Right? So I think to myself, like, in the same way with potentially like deep fakes and how it goes to, so the first tranche will be people that are mega famous, right? And then it'll be people in kind of like smaller communities. Right now we're thinking of deep fakes with like, oh, this will be really helpful with cinema and storytelling. Like, where it's going to kill is in gaming, right? Like FIFA 2022, where it's all hyper realistic, but then everybody gets paid. Like, they get paid their full quote. I mean, here's a capability that exists right now. Tom Brady, right, will continue to like take Gillette money all day, right? He's been a Gillette brand ambassador. It makes sense. It's great. Super handsome guy, greatest of all time. Tom Brady doesn't want to continue once every 6 months to fly in and like shoot the up close in the mirror razor shooting shots, in studio. Tom Brady never has to do that ever again. It's also cheaper on like Procter & Gamble's in-house marketing budget, and the language can be immediately translated to 50 languages globally that moment. So it's a win for Tom Brady, it's a win for Gillette, and it's a win for the consumer. And that's technology that existed like last year. So where this goes down the line, back to whole like NFTs, like, wait, you spent money on like paint on paper. I think it's almost the same thing with like makeup. It's like you bought like chemicals to rub on your face to look better, when like, just like your standard average person can, when they're hanging out in kind of the metaverse, right now we think of it as like a Travis Scott concert, but like just kind of the daily interactions, it's like, oh no, today I'm just going to look like 5 years younger. It's like me, but just like 5 years younger, hyper realistic, synthetic. It's like, without putting like aluminum into like my blood system. Like, it's just nuts. It's mind bending. I mean, and again, you have movie stars who are already licensing this technology so they can make movies after they die. It's like it's a whole new paradigm shift. Fascinating, exactly.
Very fascinating. All right, Mars. Well, last question. You know what it is. Hit us with your recommendations. What have you been enjoying lately? You've got back from Dubai Watch Week. What have you been doing to pass the time that you think our listeners will equally enjoy?
I got a bit of an out there recommendation.
Perfect.
But I've really enjoyed it. Do yourself an unsubscribe to virtually every email newsletter you get, and subscribe to a print newspaper.
I like it.
Just read most of what's on each page, and you are going to find such a more efficient and nutrient-rich information system that informs you on most of what's going on in the world that matters. You'll be a better conversationalist. You'll find other people much more interesting. It's like I started going to the cinema again.
Perfect.
God, I've missed that. And one of the things of the cinema that we just forget like how used we are to like being able to press pause whenever we want.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or watch something else. When you're actually in the cinema, like, no, you don't. figure out when you want to go to the bathroom because this thing's going to keep on playing. And you're in it. It's the same with like, oh, no. The editor figures out what's going on in this paper, and that person is pretty good at what they do. Like that job matters. Just get out of your filter bubbles. Try it. It's a wild world. It's kind of how the world existed for a long time until very recently.
Mic drop.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, I've been doing a purge of the inbox every day. You know, I go through and just unsubscribe to like 5. I make it a goal to sort of just 3 to 5 unsubscribe.
It's all affiliate marketing. I mean, it's just endless gift guides. Like how many like fake like whiskey ice cubes do I need? It's just endless.
And you feel
someone
so good.
that makes their money writing advertorial. I think you gotta.
But subscribe to OT.
If you see a Felix 5 Christmas watches perfect for 2021,
no, it's just the shopping
click
ones.
That link.
It's the shopping. It's this like constant state of consumerism as well. No, I agree with that. I think you should definitely unsubscribe. And find some print material that you like Revolution.
But subscribe to podcasts. I love podcasts. And again, guys, it's the conversation. Look, people come for the guests, but they stay for the hosts. And I've stayed for a long time because of you guys. So again, props. I can't wait for the next 300 episodes.
Oh, we can't wait to release them, and hopefully next year we can have
you on every year.
Yeah, at least every year. Well, hopefully
we'll have the annual deepfake update.
Brilliant.
Hopefully some travel unlocks. You know, some in real life guests and recording, and we can add a whole new element to the show that we've sort of not been able to do. Miles Fisher, pleasure as always. You're a gentleman. You're ultra interesting, and it is our absolute treat to have you on. So thank you again.
Pleasure's mine, guys.
Thank you so much, Miles.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the weekend. Take care.
You too.
Andy Green, this is it. It's the end of 2021. Do you have any special messages that you've wanted to tell people but haven't felt like you could? Maybe what OT stands for?
Yeah, so if you email otthepodcast@gmail.com, I will potentially reply with the meaning of OT.
Yep.
Alternatively, if you follow us on Instagram, ot.podcast, you often see hidden meanings and secret messages in our Instagram posts.
Sure. Yes.
Discord, of course, we keep saying it,
style.
But get in there. You're going to have a little bit more time over Christmas. It's going to be a little bit more quiet. Your family's going to annoy you. Join us. Join the Watch Fam.
Get some memes.
Discord. The link's in our bio. It's going to be in the show notes every week. And if you're a watch brand wanting to sponsor us, well, we're off. We're not on Instagram. We're an audio medium. So we'll see you there. Felix.
I want to tell people what OT stands for.
I'm going to edit it out if you do so.
It stands for Otters and Terriers.
That's it. We're done. How dare you tell the people? All right. New Year's. It's New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. See you in the New Year.